My sister told everyone I was a failure. He can't even afford rent. She laughed. I smiled and said nothing, but yesterday I pulled up in something that made her cry. I remember the laughter more than the words. It was one of those crisp autumn afternoons, the kind where leaves swirl around your feet like confetti, and everything smells like cinnamon and dying grass. My cousin Matt had just brought out the fire pit, and the whole backyard buzzed with that chaotic energy unique to family get-togethers. Kids screaming, uncles arguing about sports, my Aunt Darlene quietly judging everyone's potato salad. And then, there was my sister, Melanie. Melanie always knew how to steal the spotlight. Loud, quick with a one-liner, and sharper than most realized. That day, though, she didn't just steal it. She set it on fire. He can't even afford rent, she cackled, practically doubling over, her wine sloshing in its glass like applause. The worst part? They laughed with her. Not just Matt, but Uncle Ron, Aunt Darlene, even our mother gave a tight-lipped smirk like she was trying not to agree too loudly. I stood there with a paper plate in my hands, lukewarm mac and cheese sliding slowly toward the edge. I'd come hoping for encouragement, a smile, maybe a few kind words, but instead, I felt like a stray dog begging at a table full of full plates. Melanie had always been a showboat, but this was different. There was venom in it. Pity in their eyes. The kind that wraps around your ribs like a belt and tightens with every breath. I didn't say a word. I just smiled, nodded once, and said I needed to take a call. That was the moment, the exact moment, I decided I was done being the family's quiet failure. See, what they didn't know was that I wasn't just jobless. I was homeless. Not on the street, panhandling homeless, but close enough, sleeping in my car, parked behind a gym where I showered every morning before heading to coffee shops to teach myself code. It had been 6 months since I was laid off. My severance had lasted exactly 3, and the apartment manager gave me until the 4th before sending a notice. I'd left quietly, without fanfare. I figured I'd bounce back. I always had before. But this time was different. The job market was dry, and no one wanted a 30-year-old with a marketing degree and no formal experience in tech. I could have told Melanie that. I could have told them all. Instead, I chose silence. Let them laugh. Because I had already started something they didn't know about, something small, something fragile, a consulting business built out of the trunk of my beat-up Honda Civic. I had nothing to lose. And nothing sharpens a man's focus like knowing you have nowhere else to go. The thing about hitting rock bottom is, it's quiet. No one's texting to check on you. Your inbox goes dry. Days blur into one another, and the calendar loses meaning. But somewhere in that stillness, I started building. Slowly. Messily. Quietly. At first, it was freelance gigs on Craigslist, setting up email automations for small businesses, fixing broken Shopify pages, writing SEO blurbs. Most of it paid next to nothing, but I didn't care. I needed the reps more than the money. Every day, I'd wake up before the gym even opened, shivering under the blanket I kept in the back seat. I'd brush my teeth in the locker room, change into a clean shirt that still smelled vaguely like the trunk, and find a corner at the nearest Starbucks. That's where I lived, 2 outlets down from the bathroom, 3rd table from the left. My world condensed into a laptop, a charging cable, and a half-finished coffee I nursed for hours to avoid getting kicked out. The nights were the hardest. That's when the silence turned into noise. Doubts echo louder when the world goes still. Was I wasting time? Was Melanie right? Was I a joke? But every time I thought about quitting, I'd hear her voice again. He can't even afford rent! It rang in my ears like an anthem. A challenge. I let that humiliation ferment inside me until it turned into something useful, something sharp and focused. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a reason. A reason to walk back into the next family function and not feel like I had to apologize for existing. The first big shift came 3 months in. I landed a small contract through a client who ran a chain of vape shops. He needed inventory management and digital signage across multiple stores. It wasn't sexy, but it was real. $5,000. Legit contract. The first time I made more than minimum wage in years. It felt like a lottery win. I used half of it to rent a tiny studio with a mattress on the floor and a folding table for a desk. The other half? I reinvested. Not into stocks or crypto or anything fancy, just online courses, better software, and a used monitor that didn't flicker every 20 seconds. I still hadn't told anyone in the family what I was doing. Not even my mom. Especially not Melanie. They thought I was scraping by. Truthfully, I was. But something had shifted. Not in my bank account yet, but in me. I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was coming for something bigger. And the best part? They had no idea. I was 4 months into building my consulting business when something unexpected happened. A late-night message popped up in my inbox. It was from a guy named Ben Crawford, a friend of a friend, apparently. He ran a mid-sized real estate firm that had just lost their in-house IT lead, and their systems were falling apart. Their website was crashing, their client intake forms were broken, and they'd lost leads, actual money, because of it. Ben wrote, "Heard you know your stuff. We need someone now. You in?" I stared at the screen for a long minute. I was still a one-man team with barely enough client experience to fill a single-page resume. But I had Google, grit, and zero fear of working until sunrise. So I typed back, "I'm in. Let's talk." The contract landed 2 days later. 20,000. 3 months of work. And just like that, my little business grew teeth. That project tested every part of me. I barely slept. There were nights when my eyes burned from staring at code for 14 hours straight. I skipped meals. I missed calls. But the site went live on schedule, fully integrated with their CRM and optimized to the teeth. Ben was impressed. He paid the full fee, early, and even sent a bonus. A week later, he referred me to 3 other companies. That's when it really started. From there, it snowballed. A gym franchise. A dental clinic. A boutique clothing label that wanted influencer outreach plus full back-end systems. By the end of the year, I had a waiting list. I hired a part-time assistant to manage emails and started forming actual systems. SOPs. Retainers. Scaling. And Melanie? She was still posting quotes about living your truth on Instagram while quietly complaining to my mom that her credit card debt was eating her alive. I never responded. Never rubbed it in. But I remembered. I remembered every word she said that day in the backyard. The way she smiled when everyone laughed at my expense. The smug look she gave me like she just crushed an ant beneath her heel. She thought I'd fade out. Disappear. Maybe come crawling back asking for help. But I was just getting started. By the second year, the business wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. I was pulling in more in a single month than I used to make in a year. My services expanded from simple tech consulting to full-stack digital operations, custom dashboards, automation tools, even mobile app development. I had a small team now, remote contractors I'd vetted personally. People who were hungry like I had been. People who didn't care about titles, only execution. I moved into a sleek condo downtown. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, and a view of the skyline that glowed like ambition. I bought it in cash. No mortgage. No debt. Just one more reminder that I had climbed out of the hole they'd shoved me in, and built something from nothing. But still, I kept quiet. I didn't flex on social media. I didn't show off to the family. When my mom asked how I was doing, I just said, "Keeping busy." When Melanie snuck little jabs into the group chat, "Hope everyone's staying afloat these days," I ignored them. Silence became my power. But I was always watching. Melanie, meanwhile, was slipping. Her husband, Derek, had been laid off for the second time in a year. Their mortgage was underwater. Credit cards were maxed out. I only knew because my cousin Rachel mentioned it during brunch one day, unaware of how deeply I was tucking every detail away. "She's been asking around," Rachel said, swirling her coffee. "Trying to find someone who can help them consolidate debt. I think she even asked Uncle Alan for a loan." I nodded, said nothing, and stirred my tea. Because I knew what was coming next. A big family event, Melanie's favorite kind of stage. And I had something planned. Something she'd never forget. The invitation came on a cream-colored envelope, the kind that smells faintly of candle wax and money, at least, what's left of it. It was for our cousin Lily's wedding. Big venue, open bar, string quartet, the whole production. The kind of event where people dress to impress and old grudges bubble up in polite conversation over shrimp cocktails. I RSVP'd yes the same day. But this time, I wasn't just attending. I was arriving. You see, I had been saving for something. Not out of necessity, but intention. It was never about revenge. It still isn't. But there's a difference between showing off and showing up. And I wanted that moment to echo. I contacted a bespoke tailoring house in Chicago. 6 weeks later, a custom charcoal suit was delivered, cut to precision, light as air. I added a timepiece that whispered old money, a platinum Grand Seiko. And then came the final touch. A matte black Lamborghini Urus. Not rented. Purchased. When I slid into the driver's seat for the first time, the engine purred like it knew me. It was loud. Flashy. Maybe even a little obnoxious. But it wasn't for me. It was for the look on her face. The day of the wedding, I arrived fashionably late, of course. The parking lot was packed with the usual minivans, SUVs, and the occasional Tesla Model 3 that someone's uncle would brag about all night. And then came the Urus, gliding into the lot like a shark through a school of fish. I watched the heads turn before I even opened the door. When I stepped out, everything slowed. The eyes. The whispers. A cousin nudging another, mouthing, "Is that him?" And then I saw her. Melanie. Standing near the entrance in a pale green dress, her expression caught somewhere between confusion and disbelief. She blinked once. Twice. Like her mind was buffering. I walked toward her, slow and calm, adjusting my cuffs as the sunlight hit the watch just right. "Still think I can't afford rent?" I asked softly, just loud enough for the nearby relatives to hear. She didn't respond. She couldn't. Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. I smiled, patted her lightly on the shoulder, and walked past her into the venue. Because the show was just getting started. It felt like every head in that hall turned when I stepped inside. People I hadn't seen in years suddenly remembered my name. Some rushed over with wide smiles, pulling me into conversations like we were old friends. A few tried to play it cool, like they hadn't just been staring out the window at the Lamborghini like it dropped out of a rap video. And Melanie? She followed. I could feel her behind me like a shadow with a heartbeat. Her heels clicked fast against the floor, trying to catch up, trying to anchor me in a version of the past that no longer fit. "Hey," she finally said, grabbing my arm. Her voice was low, tight. "Can we talk?" I turned slowly. She looked small. Smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but something in her had crumpled. There were tired lines at the edges of her eyes now. A kind of desperation she was trying to camouflage behind forced polish. "Sure," I said. "Talk." Her smile twitched like it had been stitched on too tight. "I didn't mean anything by what I said back then. You know how family is. We tease, we joke." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean when you said I couldn't even afford rent?" She looked away, suddenly fascinated by the floor. "I was just being stupid. Things were different then. You've clearly done well for yourself." There it was. The stumble. The acknowledgement. Her voice softened. "Derek's out of work," she said, barely a whisper. "And things haven't been easy. If you're hiring, maybe you could consider him for something. He's good with people." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. Really looked. The woman who once laughed loudest when I was at my lowest, now asking for a lifeline, her pride crumbling in real time. My response was calm. Gentle, even. "We are hiring," I said. "But we're looking for people who lift others up. Not tear them down." She blinked. Her smile cracked like old paint. I could see the words building behind her eyes, excuses, anger, denial, but I didn't wait. Best of luck, though, I added, and turned toward the bar. Behind me, I could feel her world recalibrating. The realization. The sting. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Like I'd finally stepped out from under a weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying. And the night wasn't over yet. The reception was in full swing by the time I made it back inside. String lights twinkled from the rafters. Someone's uncle had already had one too many and was spinning his wife around to a Sinatra song. And me? I was leaning against the bar, sipping sparkling water, fielding questions from cousins who used to treat me like the wallpaper. "How'd you pull all this off?" one asked, wide-eyed. "I thought you were still, between things," another said, not unkindly. I just smiled. "Consulting," I said, keeping it simple. "Tech infrastructure, automation, operations scaling. Started from my car. Now we're global." Their eyebrows shot up, and I could see the mental math running wild behind their eyes. Then the DJ called for attention. "Before we hit the dance floor, we've got someone here who wants to say a few words," he said into the mic. "A family member with a little surprise." That was my cue. I hadn't planned to say anything. But Lily, the bride, was my favorite cousin, the one person in that family who had always treated me like I mattered, even when I had nothing. So when she asked if I'd make a short toast, I didn't hesitate. I stepped up, glass in hand, and took a deep breath as the room quieted. "I wasn't always the guy you see now," I began. "A few years ago, I was sleeping in my car. I was broke, jobless, and not exactly the star of the family." Nervous laughter. Some people glanced at Melanie. She looked like she was frozen in place. But I had time. And drive. And just enough stubbornness to believe I could build something out of nothing. I paused. "And today? My company is expanding. Fast. Which is why I wanted to share something special tonight." People leaned in. You could feel the curiosity prickling through the room. "We're hiring," I said. "Not just hiring, offering careers. High-paying roles with real benefits, upward mobility, and mentorship for people willing to work hard and support one another." A ripple went through the crowd. People started whispering, heads turned. One of my uncles raised a hand like he was in school. "What kind of jobs, exactly?" "Everything from marketing to client management to back-end systems. We train. We invest. We build together." I locked eyes with Melanie. "And we only bring on people who build others up. Who treat their team like family, better than family even." The message landed. People clapped. Some cheered. My cousin Jake was already pulling out his phone. Melanie's husband, Derek, stood slowly, glanced at her, then at me. He looked like he was about to walk over. And that's where the real fun began. The moment the mic left my hand, the real party started. Not the one with the DJ and champagne and choreographed dances. No, this was the quiet scramble. The kind of energy you feel when opportunity walks into a room wearing cufflinks and a calm smile. In less than 5 minutes, I had a small crowd forming. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly remembered how close we used to be. Old family friends asked for business cards they never cared to ask for before. And then came Derek. He approached cautiously, hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly like he didn't want to seem too eager. "Hey man," he said. "That was impressive. Really impressive." "Thanks," I said. He shifted awkwardly. "Look, I don't know if Melanie told you, but I've been out of work for a bit. I've got experience in client relations sales. I'd love to throw my hat in the ring." I nodded, no malice in my voice. "Appreciate the interest. Feel free to apply. I've got a team screening all incoming applicants." He blinked. "Oh, so? I'd go through the website?" "Yup. No shortcuts. No favors. Not this time." He gave a polite nod and drifted off, clearly surprised he hadn't gotten the VIP treatment. A year ago, I might have handed him a job just to keep peace. Now, I wasn't interested in charity hires. I turned to grab another drink when I saw her. Melanie. Alone now. Watching from a distance, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She hesitated before walking over, that trademark fake smile softening into something else, almost genuine. Almost. You looked confident up there, she said. Thank you, I replied. A pause. Then, you really built all this on your own? Every piece, I said. From the back of my car. Her eyes dropped to the floor. The pause between us stretched long. I was wrong, she said finally, barely above a whisper. Back then. I shouldn't have said what I said. I didn't speak. Not yet. She looked up again. I didn't think you'd ever actually do it. That stung, even if I'd already known it. But I kept my voice calm. A lot of people didn't. Her expression tightened. I was jealous. You were always so quiet. And I was loud. And for a long time, loud was all I had. There it was. A flash of truth. For the first time in years, she wasn't mocking. Wasn't performing. But that didn't change the past. And it didn't mean I owed her anything. I looked at Melanie for a long second. Not with anger. Not with revenge. Just clarity. You know, I said, when you laughed at me that day, I thought about quitting. Her eyes flickered. I didn't mean. But I didn't quit, I said, cutting gently. I let it sharpen me. And honestly, I should thank you. That made her blink. Thank me? For reminding me that no one was coming to save me. I had to build my way out. She nodded slowly, lips pressed thin. I didn't realize how far you'd come. I gave a faint smile. Most people don't see the work. Only the result. Another pause. She glanced toward Derek, who was still awkwardly hovering near the bar, sipping a drink like it might anchor him. I guess we're not doing great, she said, voice low. I figured, I said simply. Her eyes searched mine, maybe looking for a lifeline. But I had none left to throw her. And this time, I didn't feel guilty about it. The music picked up again as the DJ announced the next dance, but the buzz from my announcement still lingered. I stepped outside for a breath of air, letting the cool evening settle over me. No one followed this time. Not Melanie. Not Derek. Not even one of the cousins hoping for a job. I leaned against the Urus, hands in my pockets, watching the lights from the venue flicker against the hood. It didn't feel like a movie moment. It felt quiet. Final. The version of me who showed up to that backyard years ago, ashamed, worn down, humiliated, he didn't make it to this wedding. He stayed behind, somewhere between the jokes and the silence. And the man who stood here now? He didn't need applause. Or validation. He'd already won. As I pulled away, the engine humming beneath me, I caught one last glimpse in the rearview mirror. Melanie at the glass doors, her face unreadable in the reflection. I didn't wave. I didn't slow down. I just drove forward. Because the past had already had its say. And I wasn't going back.